There's a strange kind of humiliation that comes with being ignored by a machine. It's one thing to be rejected by a person. At least you know someone saw you. But when you're rejected by an algorithm, you don't even get the dignity of being perceived. You're just filtered out silently, like lint caught in a dryer. And if you're Gen X, you feel that shift in your bones. You grew up in a world where effort mattered, where experience mattered, where showing up mattered. Now you're living in a world where none of that seems to register. You can feel it in the job market most of all. You can feel it in the way your resume disappears into a portal. You can feel it in the way companies talk about talent pipelines and skills matching, as if human beings are interchangeable parts. You can feel it in the way the world has become a series of bottlenecks. Automated gates you can't get through, controlled by systems you can't see. And that feeling, that sense of being stuck at a gate you can't pass, is the perfect entry point into the real topic of this episode: positional power. Because power has never been about who is the smartest, or the most virtuous, or the most deserving. Power has always belonged to the person standing at the bottleneck, the person who controls the flow, the person who decides who gets through and who doesn't, the person who stands at the node. In the last episode, we talked about surplus, the moments humans produced more than they needed, and how that surplus created the first hierarchy. But surplus alone doesn't create power. Surplus creates the opportunity for power. The real power comes from the position that controls the surplus. That position is the node. A node is not a person. A node is a location in a resource flow, a choke point, a funnel, a place where many needs converge and only one decision maker stands between the resource and the people who depend on it. In the ancient world, the person standing next to the grain pot with a stick was the first node. If you killed that person and took the stick, the power didn't vanish. It transferred to you. Swap the person, the position remains. Remove the position, the power evaporates. This is the logic of positional power. This is the logic of hierarchy. This is the logic of civilization. And once you understand that, history stops looking like a story about great men and starts looking like a story about captured bottlenecks. Take the 19th century. Most people think John D. Rockefeller wanted to own every oil well. He didn't. Wells were risky. Wells ran dry. Wells were unpredictable. Rockefeller didn't want the wells. He wanted the refining node. Every drop of oil has to pass through a refinery to be useful. By controlling that choke point, he controlled the entire industry. He did not need to own the wells. In fact, the wells, they needed him. Or look at J.P. Morgan. He didn't build railroads, he reorganized them. He captured the credit node, the financial choke point that every industry had to pass through to survive. By 1912, Morgan and his allies held hundreds of directorships across the most powerful corporations in the country. He wasn't the genius of industry, he was the custodian of the bottleneck. Power rewards position, not virtue. Power rewards choke points, not character. Power rewards the node, not the individual. And once a node is captured, it begins to harden. Soft and formal control becomes formal, durable lineage. The grainkeeper becomes the steward becomes the Lord becomes the dynasty, and the dynasty becomes the phalanx, a protective wall of marriages, alliances, and interlocking interests designed to keep the bottleneck closed to everyone else. This is why elites across history look interchangeable. It's not because they share personality traits, it's because they occupy the same structural position. They are custodians of the choke points. They are the operators of the nodes. And this is where the present moment comes back into focus. Because the feeling you have, the feeling of being filtered out, ignored, blocked, routed, denied, it's not a personal failure. It's a structural shift. The nodes have moved. The bottlenecks have changed. The positions of power have migrated from physical choke points to digital ones. The grain pot has become the algorithm. The gatekeeper has become the platform. The steward has become the system. The node has become invisible. And you're not imagining it. You're standing at a gate you can't see, controlled by a position you can't access, operated by a logic you were never trained for. In episode 3, we're going to talk about how these nodes harden, how they build the supports that make hierarchy feel inevitable. We're going to talk about the 4 pillars that every power structure builds to protect itself: the story, the muscle, the resource flow, and the belief system that makes obedience feel voluntary. Because once you understand the pillars, you understand why hierarchy doesn't just survive, it stabilizes. And if you're interested in this type of content, I've started putting together a resource reading list. For episode 1, James C. Scott Against the Sun and David Graeber, Debt, the First 5,000 Years. I recommend those. In this episode 2 books are Robert Hirschman, Exit, Voice, and Loyalty. This one explains why bottlenecks matter and why people can't exit a node. And Robert Caro, The Power Broker, where he discusses positional power. Thank you.